Hello, everyone. Welcome to your monthly seminar with me, your host, as always, Johnny Landals from Next Step Nutrition, your resident nutrition advisor slash coach slash person to chat to. So, welcome if you're watching this back. Welcome to you too. And if you're watching this live, then remember that I can bring up any comments like so. And I do love having comments live because one, it shows me that people care, and that's nice. But two, also it makes things much more interactive. So if you have a question, drop it below and I can bring it up like so. There's no need to give StreamYard any data. It'll just come up as Facebook user, which gives you a bit of anonymity to me. Of course, I can just see who said it later when I look back. But of course, for now, if you want to remain anonymous and ask a question, then you can do. So what are we going to go through? Well, we're going to go through what eating for poor performance actually means. We're going to go, oh, look at my little mouse. We're going to look through what performance means. We're going to look then at daily habits that we can look to build to make a bigger impact in the gym with our results. And then we're going to look at how to track progress long term as well. So we're going to go through some stuff that's pretty scientific at times. I'm going to keep things mega simple. As always, take things with a pinch of salt in that these then need to be customized to yourself in terms of your own activity levels, to your own goals, and within your own lifestyle. But hopefully by keeping these things simple and applicable, you can see here some tips that you can take forward and do in a very non-judgmental manner just to help you with your overall performance in the gym. So let's get into it. So performance eating, what does it really mean? Interestingly, a lot of people may see this burger as not your typical performance meal. However, if you were to eat these things separately, a bit of bread, a bit of salad, a bit of meat, you'd be like, ooh, really, really healthy meal. And so my first challenge to you all is challenge what you think is healthy versus unhealthy, because our first priority when it comes to performance is eating enough energy. A lot of people, especially when they're trying to lose body fat as their, main reason for going to the gym, will sabotage their performance efforts just because they're not eating enough energy. And we can lose fat with only slightly eating less than we burn, and we can build muscle by making sure that we eat plenty of protein and doing some other things, and therefore we can then strike a great balance between improving our body composition and improving our performance. And my belief, as well as the belief of many researchers as well, is that if we put enough energy into our training, then we will get a lot more out of that training, because one, we'll train harder, two, we'll be able to repair faster, and then three, that means that we'll get a better training response from said training, right? So overall energy intake does come first. We then need to focus on sort of protein and carbohydrates in different for different reasons, and then meal timing and supplements are very small factors. And for supplements, please do watch the video I've got on supplements, but also I've got a great blog on my website, nextstepnutrition.co.uk, supplements, the good, the bad, the pointless, and that will help you decide which ones that are worth taking. But everything else comes first, right? Amount of food that you're having, the type of food you're having, the timing of the food, all comes before taking any supplements. And this is why I said about healthy versus unhealthy food. Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer, was criticized for having, a 12,000 calorie junk food diet because of things like breakfast cereal and French toast and pancakes and, fried sandwiches and pasta, pizza, those kind of things. We may have all seen videos of Rich Froning at the CrossFit Games years prior about chocolate milk, peanut butter, and pizza at the CrossFit Games, because at the end of the day, the main thing when you're performing at very high volume and very high intensity is your overall energy amount. And these foods that are known as junk foods aren't void of nutrients, right? Beef, bread, cereal, French toast, pasta, pizza. These foods are full of nutrients. They've got cheese, they've got tomato, they've got bread, flour, all the rest of it. That they are full of micronutrients, right? They're not void of nutrients. They're just energy dense. And because they're energy dense, they're easier to overeat. And this is why we see them as bad or unhealthy, but they aren't. Of course, as regular people who are just doing one exercise session a day, maybe 3 or 5 times a week, even for those of you doing double days, you're not going to need 12,000 calories. And so to get plenty of plant-based foods in your diet, which is known as a health-seeking behavior, particularly for gut health as well, which is very hot at the moment as a topic, we're of course not going to be eating this way. But it worked for Michael Phelps because of his massive energy output, and he performed like a dream because he realized that energy intake and carbohydrates were two of the main things to focus on. So this may help alleviate a lot of food guilt for people, and also realize where your priorities lie when you're focusing on performance only. So performance, comes down to feeling enough energy to get us through that session without lagging or struggling. It also comes down to how well we recover between sessions, and rest days are important, as are having periods of time where you're doing more volume versus periods of doing less volume. But those kind of things are outside the scope of this video. Let's just say that performance is about getting enough energy in the session as well as recovering well from that session. So what things can we do nutritionally and behaviorally to help those things? Well, let's not forget the basics, right? Sleep, taking rest days, all affect our energy levels. If you're sleeping really badly, then you're going to struggle no matter what food you've put in your system, right? So make sure to aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. We can go through a video on improving sleep in terms of habits if you would like to, but making sure that you're well rested, managing your stress levels, getting plenty of sleep, taking rest days from the gym. I personally like to take a rest day every 2 to 3 days. It's different depending on the volume you do per session or intensity per session. Sometimes I'll do 5 on, 2 off. That's me. You've got to find a routine that works for you. Nutritionally then, protein. Eating 1 to 2 palm-sized portions of a protein-based food every 3 to 5 hours is a fantastic habit to get on top of. So this would be part of having our balanced plates for our meals. A protein-based food would be something like eggs, meat, or fish. If you're vegan, then you're going to be looking more towards tofu or soy or some form of plant-based protein alternative. Just be aware that lentils, chickpeas, and other legumes are quite high carbohydrate. You have to combine 2 sources often as well to get a complete amino acid chain, and therefore that's going to be your protein and carbs together most of the time, and you're going to be looking at vegetables outside of those things. If you're looking to build muscle and do so most effectively, according to research, it's doing this 4 to 6 times a day alongside taking a supplement like creatine monohydrate. That's going to help you pack muscle on quicker. It's going to help you recover from your training faster and get more from the training as well. The way that creatine monohydrate works is effectively giving you slightly more energy in the gym, not massive amount. It's not a steroid. It's the most well-researched and safe sports supplement on the planet. But doing those 2 things together are going to help you build the most muscle effectively. But in terms of performance and recovery, protein is important. Protein to grow, as in protein is the main macronutrient used for muscular recovery. Carbohydrates are our other powerful macronutrient when it comes to performance. Fats I've not really mentioned in this video because most of the time you'll get enough fats from the meats and dairies that you eat. Of course, balancing your fats is important, and getting them in through nuts and seeds is very helpful. But we just don't need to focus on them too much in this lecture because most of you will have that locked down, and they don't have a big deal of importance towards overall performance. They're just things that will help us replenish our hormonal energy, our hormonal system in general, and they'll help fuel our aerobic system, yes, but carbohydrates are the main energy source for any type of high intensity exercise. So this is our go-to source, right? Carbs to go. This is the macronutrient that our body and brain prefer to use as an energy source. It's stored in the liver and in the muscles as glycogen. And so depending on our energy levels, our activity levels, we would scale these up or down. Carbohydrates aren't essential for health. Fats are. which is why a low carb diet is perfectly healthy for someone to do, but not necessarily the best thing to do, right? Because even moving around, walking, talking, using your brain, all the rest of it requires carbohydrates. High intensity activity requires more so. So the more that you train, have more carbohydrates. The less that you train, probably scale those carbohydrates back a bit, focus more on fruits or veggies. Doesn't mean that you can't have them. You're just looking to alternate them and alter the quantity of them based on how much you exercise. Now, meal timing, as I mentioned, is far less important than how much you eat and what you eat, but it can help, right? So the way that to think about this in terms of performance, as I've mentioned, eating every 3 to 5 hours is a good habit to build into anyway, in terms of eating regularly and eating balanced meals, because that gets us into a normal appetite regulation. It helps us avoid any massive phases of under eating and overeating, which again is common in people trying to lose fat. But with regards to performance, eating both 1 to 3 hours before and 1 to 3 hours after a workout will help you maximize the energy you have available for said session. Of course, a recovery window is 24 to 48 hours post workout anyway, and within that time, if you've used carbohydrates in that workout, all of the meals afterwards are going to help you replenish carbohydrate both in the in the liver and in the muscles that get stored as glycogen. But having a bit of a perk before your workout will make the glucose in the bloodstream, which is more readily available to be used as energy, as well as protein beforehand and protein afterwards. Just helps you feel good, helps your muscles work effectively, and helps that training adaptation. Of course, the closer you are to a workout, the easier the food should be to digest. And by that, I mean carbohydrates need to be higher GI. So things like fruit, white carbohydrates, bread, serene loaf, that kind of dried fruit, those kind of things, even sweets. And then the further away from the workout, you can have more solid foods. So potatoes, pasta, that kind of thing. And that's where we would be looking at if we were looking at a competition, right? During a competition where we're doing multiple events in a single day, eating little and often is the key, as is the speed of the digestion. If you're trying to swallow chicken and sweet potato down at a competition day, your body's not going to digest that or use that. You're going to probably be quite bloated for an event, and you're really not going to feel too hot. Whereas actually, if you're snacking on things like serene loaf, sweets, fruit, dried fruit, alongside taking protein powder every sort of 4 hours and having electrolytes alongside your water to improve your hydration, you're going to have plenty of energy through the day. You might get some weird looks, but when you're ahead of everyone else and ahead of the pack, then you're going to be laughing. And this has worked for myself. It's worked for other clients of mine who used to perform regularly. One of my clients, ex-clients, made it to sanctionals this year as an individual. He's also won Battle of Britain as an individual in the past, and he still uses this strategy to this day. So it does work, and I've got a sheet for this if you'd like it. So simply DM me with the word competition or something like that, or just say, hey, Johnny, you mentioned competition eating in your latest video. I'd love that sheet, and I'll give you it completely free. Now, tracking, not with this lovely keyboard, of course, but with MyFitnessPal, is not a necessity, although it may help, right? So when I was in competition phase and maximum performance phase, I did track my calories and my amount of carbohydrates and proteins because I wanted to perform my best. It can be something you can use for a short period of time to educate yourself on what different food contains, how much energy you may need because you may be under eating, particularly if performance is your main goal. But it's not something that you want to do long term, right? You don't want to be tracking your food forever. But if you're doing different training sessions, like in something like CrossFit, where you're having to sometimes do a lot of cardio, sometimes do a lot of strength, other times do, high intensity metcons, intervals, that kind of thing, it can definitely help. I can help you compare energy in versus energy out. But long term, we do want to adopt that intuitive eating framework of hunger and satiety, and getting to grips with what our body needs from an intuitive internal signaling point of view is definitely helpful. This can just help education of amounts and types of foods in the short term. So use it if you'd like to, but you absolutely don't have to. Now, METs, It is a baseball team in the US, but METS also stands for Metabolic Equivalent Table of Sport. And the METS calculator, again, I have a copy of one. You can also look up metscalculator.co.uk or .org or something like that. But a METS calculator basically shows us, based on our body weight, based on the activity that we're doing, how many calories we're burning. And this isn't to be used as a way to think about earning our food or burning calories or compensating for food. So let me just throw that note in here, because that's a really important note. That would, that's going to damage your relationship with food, encourage disordered eating, and do all of those kind of negative things. But if we're looking for performance-based effects, and we know that for performance, we want to replace the energy that we're spending, we want to make sure that we're having enough carbohydrates and enough energy to perform at our best, we can then see the difference that a 30-minute run at X speed costs us in terms of energy versus a 30-minute strength session where we're doing maybe 8 to 15 reps per set, and it's kind of hypertrophy bodybuilding focused. So this again is an awareness piece, right? How much energy am I using doing the tasks that I have to do? It's not to be used for compensating food for exercise, burning off certain foods that you eat, or thinking that you need to earn your food through certain exercise. And the mindset that you approach that calculator with will really make a big difference to how you receive that. So then how do we track progress? Well, we track progress like we track our workouts, right? We choose what data is important to us, and then we measure it. We measure and monitor it regularly. Now, the human body is a complicated, messy thing, and it doesn't make progress linearly, and you can't control the progress your body makes. You can only control the action steps that you take. So I'd much rather you all focus on how many exercise sessions you're doing a week, how well you're sleeping, the foods that you're eating on a regular basis in terms of, how often am I eating protein? How often am I eating fruits and veggies? How often am I eating carbohydrates sort of before and after my workout? I'd rather you track those things. But if body weight is important to you, or if energy levels are important to you, or even measurements are important to you, then it's just a simple phase of either, logging it in a spreadsheet or logging it in, a journal that you have with you that you plan your week with, or however you manage your time and plan your thing and track your, you track your workouts using an app. Why not track something like this with an app? And I'm not talking about MyFitnessPal for food, for example, but an app like Evernote or Day One Journal. You could easily set up a table where you say, right, what's my energy levels on a scale of 1 to 5? What's my hunger level on a scale of 1 to 5? What's my appetite on a scale of 1 to 5? And what's my overall mood on a scale of 1 to 5? And you can track those things over time alongside how regularly you do your action steps, for example. And you can then see the correlation in data between what you're doing nutritionally, the results you're getting in the gym, and how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis through energy as well. Because all things considered, if you're eating and you're training hard and you're taking rest days, then ideally over time, the curve of your performance should go up, lifting heavier numbers, moving faster, getting faster workout times, that kind of thing. And if not, and your energy levels are tanking, you're feeling pretty crummy, you at least then have data to look back on to say, right, well, how consistent have I been with some key habits? How consistent have I been with my sleep? How consistent have I been with having protein and carbohydrates regularly, and monitoring the amount of food that I'm having? And then at least then you can look back and see the things that are within your control and adjust. So to sum up, eating for performance, overall energy intake is the key factor. Timing can affect our workout energy, but is less important. But for bonus results, 1 to 3 hours before, 1 to 3 hours after. Consistency over time is the aim of the game, rather than short-term perfection, whatever perfection means. Don't forget the basics, like taking rest days and having a good night's kip, because they do matter. Managing stress as well, I'll throw in there. Remember, protein to grow, carbs to go, fats for mojo in terms of what food groups to prioritize. So protein and carbohydrates are most important for performance. Hunger and appetite is always the key driver for the amount of food that we have. However, if you're concerned about under eating, then using things like tracking food and a METS calculator can really help. Awareness of your overall energy is always helpful. So logging your energy scores from 1 to 5 on a day-to-day basis, monitoring how well you sleep, and comparing that to what you're doing in the gym and what you're eating can be a great way for you to internally recognize the patterns in your body and build a routine that's going to work best for you, rather than relying on an app to tell you sort of how much and what to eat. So there you go, team. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's, well, it's kind of like a lecture, isn't it? But tonight's video training on eating for performance. If you have any questions, please do drop a comment below and I'll reply to you tomorrow or in the future, depending on when you watch this. Have a great rest of your evening, day, morning, week, whatever you're watching this, and I'll talk to you all very soon.